a little bit about the mechanism of what if thinking. So one of the most detrimental ways that we can negatively affect the entire construct of our consciousness is to get into this sort of cyclical thinking of what if, especially when you have a lot on your plate. And in terms of our modern existence, the way that society is currently set up in terms of the rapidity of information transfer, compliance, everything that we're expected to do in our modern lifestyle is essentially directed by computers and the very fast transfer of information. Now, this is great for modern convenience. This is really, in a lot of ways, terrible for our own mental health. The reason why is that from a human perspective, we're expected to keep up with this rapid transfer of information, and we're also expected to be robotically calm about that. And in my grasp of this, I don't think that it's really humanly possible to digest the amount of information, which is usually, again, task directed. Any way that you look at it, let's say you have a job and again, you have a cascade of emails coming into your inbox in every single moment. That email or that directive is usually attached to a task. Now, if we go back to 100 years ago, where directives and information was transferred by a letter or by a person on horseback or whatever it was, you know, a daily paper, we just didn't have the capacity to transfer such a large amount of information so quickly. And what this does in terms of the human psyche is it creates this barrage of anxiety, because most humans want to be diligent. They want to complete the task. They want to do their best. It's really ingrained into each and every one of us to do a good job. Even if we're functioning, you know, at a very low level and we're not at our best, we still intrinsically want to do a good job. And this is where I want to really cycle back to what if thinking and the mechanism, because it's something that I personally, I don't know if I should use the word suffer from, but I definitely fall in the trap of what if thinking, because there's so many infinite amount of possibilities coming from all of the information that we're expected to process at any given moment, then it leads our consciousness to try to fill in the blanks, to try to connect all the dots and figure out the solutions for the many tasks and the extreme amount of information processing that we're expected to do. And so my intention for creating this video is to bring a little bit of peace to some degree to your mental landscape, in terms of the fact that if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling inundated by the sheer mass of information and output that you're expected to generate in this modern world, first of all, you're not alone, and I don't think that you're wrong. I think that there's a lot that we don't understand about integrating all of this computer technology in terms of the speed of information transfer and how it actually affects us at a core level. for myself, I know personally it creates a tremendous amount of anxiety for me because I'm one of those individuals that is a perfectionist. I want to do things always to the best of my abilities. I always want to be on the task to make other people happy, to just do a good job. The problem again with a lot of information, or the information that can come into us in the modern era, is it's not conducive to relaxation. So we have our devices, we have our computers, we have our iPads, we have our phones, okay? And all of these little automated devices trigger a sort of fight or flight response in terms of what's going on in our brain. Every time your phone bings, rings, your iPad, your email, whatever it is, whatever app that you're on, every time it is alerting you, it's kind of like that rat in the experiment that is triggered. You're continually triggered to do something, but the rate of triggering, because of the way our devices function, it takes a toll on our mental health. And so what I've noticed is that people more and more need some sort of escape to justify the intensity at which they work. And this escape can be alcohol, it can be drugs, it can be, extracurricular activities that aren't maybe the best in terms of a balanced soul structure. And it kind of leads to this domino effect. And so back to what I was trying to bridge this discussion into, this what if thinking. So again, what if thinking is what our brains do when we don't know the answers. So we start to try to assemble information from our past experiences and draw a conclusion about what a future outcome may be. But of course, when we're using this what if thinking, we can only really draw from previous past experiences. So it can be very triggering depending on how your past dynamics or what your past looks like. You can really fall into a negative domino effect of a lot of spiraling what if thinking. And I know, again, myself, I can very, very much get into this track. Even today particularly, I have a lot on my plate, and it's not, there's really too much for me to complete everything in terms of what any normal person could do in a day. Yet I'm forcing myself to complete all these tasks because they are mandatory. And if that means that I have to stay up till 2 in the morning to get them done, and then get up at 5 in the morning to be where I need to be tomorrow, I have to do that. I have no choice. The world doesn't give me an out from compliance and mandatory things that have to be done. But what this can cause is some very irrational, erratic kind of frantic thinking. And I started, moving into that mental dialogue of the slippery slope of fight or flight, that panic mentality. And it's like knowing that there was this pressure behind what I needed to accomplish, or what I need to accomplish, created a cascade of this negative what if thinking. And again, pulling information that probably has nothing to do with the actual true outcome of what's going on. So That's hence why I'm making this video. So then what steps did I take or am I taking to pull myself out of that what if thinking? Because my immediate response, or the easiest thing to do, would be to have a glass of wine and just shut my brain off, okay? And there's certainly days where at the end of a long day, I'm gonna have a glass of wine to shut my brain off. But that's not the healthiest way to fix what is not functioning in terms of your internal thought dialogue, okay? Running to that immediate escape, which is again what we've come to in society. So if we can't deal with the task at hand, or what life is giving us, or the complexities of life and the pressures of life, it's like, well, let's run to the doctor and get a pill and numb ourselves out. Make it so that we don't feel the effects of life. And I think what's more important to realize is that when your life is becoming so pressurized that you need to escape from it, that's a problem. And turning to escapism, so turning to an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety or alcohol or drugs or some sort of extracurricular activity that really just causes you to circumvent the original problem, is never going to lead to a good solution. So what I think is the best method for what if thinking and anxiety management is, first of all, to take a moment throughout your day and shut off your devices. Completely shut them off. Don't pay attention to them. Turn off your phone and go into a place of just being. Remember that you are enough just as you are. And if you don't have all the solutions, and if you don't know how to solve the problems, or you can't be everything the world needs you to be, you are still a valid, worthy, amazing human, okay? And there are going to be times where you're gonna fall short of your own expectations, and you're going to fall short of the world's expectations, and you have to get okay with that. You have to put away that aspect of perfectionism and realize that if there are certain consequences for you not being enough for this crazy, insane, rapid fire world that we live in, that you'll deal with them as they come. Because when you try to take on the totality of everything that is pending, you know, waiting to get done, waiting to be perfect, and you're trying to figure all of that out in the moment, it's just not humanly possible. And we need to also set boundaries. So there are going to be individuals and people and situations in your life that just frankly apply too much pressure to you. And if that is the case, you have to be strong enough within your own resolve to just say, no, I can't handle you today. No, I'm not gonna do this today. No, I'm not capable of getting this to you by this deadline. It is not possible. And when we are authentic in this, and when we are really, really clear about the boundaries that we need to set with others, we actually set ourselves free, and it prevents us from really having to move into this what if thinking. Because remember, it is us, it is the individual that sets the boundaries for what we experience. I know that sometimes that may be extremely difficult to grasp, that you have that much control. Or you might, again, what if thinking is also very fear-based thinking. So it will be like, well, what if I don't do good enough? What if I'm not good enough and my boss fires me? You know, for me, because I am the boss, it's what if I don't perform enough and I can't bring enough revenue in the door to take care of all my employees? We all have our own what ifs. And what we need to remember is that sometimes things just don't work out, and that's okay. And there's a lesson in that as well. And that we cannot foresee the future. We cannot assemble everything in the now moment that is going to be the domino effect of our futures. And when we try to do that, when we try to get this crystal ball or pretend that we have a crystal ball and that we know what's going to happen tomorrow, the next day, a month, a year, 10 years out, that is what if thinking, and it is distorted thinking, and it doesn't help us. It doesn't help us in our joy. And it causes this need to escape, because as we create this what if storyline about all of these different things, we continue. That what if thinking spawns is a lot of guilt, and it can also lead to a lot of sort of spiraled thinking, or this frantic thinking, because what's essentially happening in our consciousness is our brain is trying to spit out a solution. And of course it can't, because it doesn't know all the pieces. It doesn't have all the correct information to put together a solution. So again, it just starts spitting out, what if this, what if that, what if that? And all of those things, what happens within our brain is that we start playing out what would happen. So we start creating that mental scene of what it would look like if this particular scenario played out, which again is very all-consuming and overwhelming and actually quite useless, because we don't know. Definitely we do have to think about solutions, and I'm not saying that you want to have an absolutely blank slate in terms of your mind, but when you're dealing with massive amounts of anxiety, specifically what if thinking, you have to have a good strategy to cut it off naturally and to alleviate the guilt from yourself. So this sort of impending doom that comes with the anxiety disorder. And first and foremost, forgiving yourself in terms of not expecting yourself to be perfect in every moment. This also allows you to give a certain leeway to others. Now, there's a spectrum of this, because of course we can't be so lenient that we let the world fall apart and we don't complete any of our tasks. So I'm not suggesting that, you know, you eat Cheetos all day and just sit around and watch movies. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you have a reasonable expectation of what you can accomplish and what others can accomplish. And if it's really evident that those around you are just being inherently lazy and they're not doing the best job they can based on the circumstances, you know, like based on the fact that that's their job description and they need to be diligent to their job, or in terms of your own personal life, if you are really doing the best that you can, and the best that you can should also have an integration for your own personal time, then that's the point where, using that logical thinking, you can step back and say, I'm not going to migrate into the territory of ultra perfectionism, because that's unhealthy. I'm going to look at it, and one of the tools I also use is look at the situation, or look at yourself as if you were the mother or father of you. So see yourself as a child. See what you're doing, how you're acting, how you're being, how you're showing up in the moment. And if you were your own child, how would you feel about all of it? And when I do that, when I step back and I look at my own thoughts, words, actions, deeds from that perspective, I can be a lot more gentle on myself. Because again, I know the totality of what I'm carrying. I know the totality of everything that I'm doing. And I know that I'm always doing the best that I can do in that moment. And I release myself from having to know all of the outcomes or what other people are thinking or what other people are potentially creating judgment around. Because that's the other thing that can be very troublesome in terms of what it's thinking, is we try to jump into other people's consciousness and we try to figure out what they're thinking about us or how they're judging us or how they may or may not perceive us in a good light. And this again leads to this spiraled type of thinking. And this is about creating a certain balanced sovereignty within your own mind where you can find a balance point and you can calm your mind down by the mechanism of your own